The door burst open with a thunderclap. It wasn't just the sound of metal tearing apart. It was the cold, deafening roar of the midnight storm rushing in. An invisible beast that swallowed the air inside the cabin and turned it into panic. Maya Reeves was thrown toward the edge. Her eyes, once locked on hundreds of panels and instruments, now saw nothing but an abyss of black, speckled with the furious white foam of the Atlantic raging hundreds of feet below. Rain hammered against the transport helicopter's fuselage like gunfire. It was a monster of metal thrashing above the sea, and she, Captain Maya Reeves, was bound at the wrists and knees. Her pilot's uniform, once a badge of honor, now soaked and heavy as an anchor of betrayal. "You never should have looked that far, Captain." Commander Corson's voice came as a dry whisper through the infernal roar of the rotors. He was no longer the mentor who'd once pinned her wings. He was a shadow now, a ghost of a man, stripped of honor but filled with empty orders. The others, agents she had flown with, laughed with, trusted her life with, wouldn't even look at her. Obedient cowards, silent accomplices. A flash of lightning split the clouds, painting the scene in ghostly white. For a brief instant, Corson's face appeared, the mask of guilt cracking to reveal the chill of raw power. Maya didn't scream. She saved her breath. Every beat of her heart was a calculation, not a cry. She had found the names. High-ranking officers selling classified flight plans. Vital intel to private warlords. The trail led straight to him, Corson, and to Director Vale, sitting up front. A conspiracy that had cost the lives of soldiers she had sworn to protect. Corson took one final step forward, forcing her against the open edge. The wind lashed across her face. "Consider this a course correction, Captain. The truth dies here." Maya looked at him without blinking. She remembered soldiers pulled from burning wrecks, oaths whispered beneath folded flags. Rage didn't consume her. She shaped it. It wasn't panic that filled her chest, but icy clarity, the kind that comes when you realize the only person who can save you is yourself. They pushed her. The shove was quick, effortless. Gravity took her with brutal certainty. For one infinite second, she was weightless, framed in the glow of another lightning flash. She wasn't just falling. She was being betrayed, bound, handcuffed, powerless. The helicopter grew smaller above her, its red beacon pulsing like a dying heartbeat in the distance. They thought she was gone, that the ocean would swallow the truth along with her. But Maya Reeves had no intention of dying nameless. In the heart of freefall, the air roared, shredding her lungs and ears. Rain struck her skin like shards of ice. Panic should have paralyzed her, but the pilot in her took control. She had trained for freefall simulations, though never while shackled. She tucked her legs, strained against the steel cuffs, and using the air resistance like a broken wing, lowered her shoulders. A subtle, nearly invisible movement, but it shifted her descent, not to stop it, to steer it. Down below, through the storm's darkness, she caught the faint glimmer of lights. A fishing boat, small and insignificant in the vast chaos, but a target nonetheless. The difference between crashing into open water and having a chance at survival. She forced her body to obey, every muscle burning, fighting the drag of her soaked uniform and the weight of steel. The fall became a brutal exercise in precision. She twisted through the dark. Once, twice, 3 times. The impact came like a detonation, not just across her body, through her bones. Pain exploded in her ribs. The thermal shock was instant, paralyzing. Darkness rushed in. She sank, dragged toward the abyss, the cuffs pulling her down like lead. Her mind clung to a single promise, a thought burning hotter than the cold. "I'll be back." The sea was an iron lung, trying to smother her forever. Each wave folded over her like a living wall. Maya drifted between absolute black and flashes of memory, voices, laughter, the smell of jet fuel, and her father's voice, an old military pilot, echoing in her mind. "Never give up altitude or hope, kid. The ground only gets you if you stop flying." She held on to that sound, Her bound hands brushed against something hard, rough, the hull of a cargo crate, tossed by the storm, a remnant of some earlier wreck. With a surge of adrenaline, she wedged the cuffs against the jagged edge of metal. When the next wave yanked her violently, she used its force and snapped the steel. The sound was muffled, the pain sharp, the metal tore skin, but the shackle broke. Her wrist was free. Pain was nothing new. Pain was proof she was still alive. With freed hands, she pulled a knife from her vest, cut the bindings around her legs, and began to swim, not toward the surface, but deeper, into the protective darkness, away from the eyes of any search sent to confirm her death. Hours crawled by, turning the storm's darkness into a gray dawn. The tempest faded into thick, ghostly fog, and then she saw it. A coastline, lined with towering cliffs, black rocks dripping with the first light of morning. The scent of earth, of life, stronger than salt or diesel. She swam with the last of her strength, pulling herself onto a narrow stone ledge. Collapsed, coughing salt, blood, and the exhaustion of a night spent wrestling the sea. The world spun in hues of blue. The helicopter was gone, but its echo haunted the wind. Somewhere, Corson, Vale, and the others were already writing their report. Mission failed. No body recovered. Case closed. Maya smiled, a cracked, bitter smile. They were right about one thing. Her body wasn't recovered. It had risen. She was a ghost now, and ghosts don't need parachutes to raise hell. The morning fog draped the cliffs like a shroud. Maya crawled away from the sea's foam. Every muscle screamed, but survival was pure adrenaline, forcing her forward. She was on land, but not safe. Corson and Vale wouldn't stop at reports. They'd send silent teams to make sure. The ghost stayed buried. The cold wind licked at her wounds. Deep cuts on her wrists where the cuffs had torn flesh. Ribs aching from the fall. Her uniform, dragged from the sea, was shredded, nearly dry. She peeled it off, wrung out the water. That uniform was proof of who she'd been, and a banner for who she'd become. Limping, she followed the jagged contour of the cliffs, her trained eyes scanning the horizon. She wasn't looking for helicopters. Not yet. She was looking for life, for shelter, for tools. After an hour of painful walking, the fog thinned. Below, in a small cove sheltered from the wind, stood a weathered structure, an abandoned fishing shack, rusted and sea-stained, but solid. Maya descended the steep slope with soldier's caution. The air smelled of salt and dried fish. Inside, the stench was stronger, but there was hope. She searched through debris and rust with trembling hands, finding what she needed: a dull hunting knife, a broken coil of wire, an old flare with a cracked lens, and most importantly, a tattered first aid kit in a metal box. She sat on the dirt floor, her body shaking from cold and exhaustion, and began the work. Using the wire and an old fishing line, she stitched the deeper cuts on her wrists, ignoring the sharp pain. She whispered names to herself, not as laments, but as fuel. Lieutenant Miller, Sergeant Davies, Corporal Cale. You didn't die in an accident. You died because of a deal. I'm the proof. Each name was another stitch, another vow driven into flesh and soul. When the sun finally broke through the mist, painting the sea in gray-blue light, she lit a small fire inside a rusted barrel, dried her uniform, ate what little she found, stale crackers, then opened the shack's radio. Static hissed. Then, a faint voice. Merchant vessel Sol, Damar reporting engine failure. Repeating, engine failure in storm waters north of the peninsula. Seeking route to Lisbon. The word Lisbon electrified her. A big port, a gateway to Europe and the world. A place where she could disappear and begin again. But how would she get there? She was a shadow. No money, no papers, hunted by high-ranking officers. She couldn't just buy a ticket. Staring out at the coast, an idea came. Altitude and hope, her father's voice. If she couldn't fly, she'd use light. Using a broken mirror and the cracked lens from the flare, she jury-rigged an improvised beacon atop the cliff. At dusk, when the fog began to swallow the horizon again, She waited. For hours later, a dark, hulking silhouette appeared on the water. The supply ship. Maya sent Morse code across the bay, flashing the mirror once, twice. Then she hid. She knew merchant ships wouldn't risk approach for mere flashes. They'd send someone to investigate. Tense minutes crawled by until a lifeboat cut through the calm, post-storm sea. 2 sailors jumped ashore, cautious. Middle-aged men with faces weathered by time, unarmed. They looked like decent men. Maya waited, dripping and silent, until one of them glanced back at the boat. She stepped down from the rocks, dripping, silent, eyes hard enough to freeze the air between them. She didn't look like a castaway. She looked like a warrior baptized by hell. The older sailor, beard flecked with gray, barely found the words. "Who are you? What happened?" "My name is Maya. I need to get to Lisbon. No questions. No reports. Help me, and you won't have trouble," she said, voice hoarse but steady. There was a visceral truth in her tone that made them obey without thinking. They didn't want her story, only to do the right thing. The old fisherman, Elias, as he later told her, offered his hand with the weary dignity of a man who'd seen too much. "The sea brings those who need healing and those who want justice. You look like the latter, miss. Come on." That night she rode below decks, wrapped in a foul tarpaulin, watching the coastline shrink beneath a full moon. Elias brought water, a stale piece of bread, and a small lamp so she could map her plan. She needed allies, people outside the chain of command, those who'd seen too much and lived. Maya's mind sketched routes, a contact in Berlin, an airstrip in Malta, and most importantly, Lieutenant Anika Joe, Secret Logistics, Lisbon. Anika was the last link. Maya closed her eyes. She didn't want only revenge. She wanted exposure. The truth, she thought, had to shine brighter than any bullet. For the first time in days, she slept. Sleep didn't bring peace. Only the hum of rotor blades, the smell of rain, and a silent promise that no one involved in that betrayal would ever rest easy. When she woke, the ship rolled gently, and dawn bled gold over endless blue. She whispered to the approaching horizon, "They think they buried a ghost. I'm a storm that follows." The vessel docked at the port of Lisbon under a sky the color of scorched steel. While the crew finished unloading crates, Maya Reeves was gone, dissolved into the city's sprawling harbor like a wisp of smoke. She moved through Lisbon's alleys that smelled of diesel, salt, and rain. The coat Elias lent her, oversized and worn, was the only disguise she had. Beneath it, the torn uniform reminded her she was still a soldier, albeit a renegade. Every breath was a calculation. She needed proof, allies, and above all a way to stay out of reach from the men who'd written her death certificate. Her priority was contact, Lieutenant Anika Joe. She found a working payphone tucked in the shadow of a closed market. Using a stolen identity, a forgotten prepaid card, she dialed the secure line she hadn't used in years. 2 rings, and a familiar voice answered. Low, tired, taut. "Secret Logistics. Identify yourself." Maya whispered, "Maya." "Captain Reeves." A silence followed. Not the stunned silence of disbelief, but the kind that forms when someone tries to process the impossible. "Maya, they said you were dead." Anika finally said, voice laced with disbelief and cautious relief. "I know. I need you to act like that's still true," Maya ordered, voice hard as steel. "They scrubbed everything. I'm the only remaining proof, and I'm in Lisbon. I need a blind spot. Now." Anika was the sort of logistics officer who remembered everything and trusted nothing. Her loyalty was to the truth, not to generals. "Corson and Vale cover it clean, Maya. Report says you piloted a recon aircraft that suffered mechanical failure. Ejected too late. Your chute was damaged." "It's a perfect lie. They shoved me out of a helicopter, Anika, handcuffed. Can you believe that?" The radio sighed, a slow measured breath. "I believe you. I always believed you. But Corson's untouchable. Any help will be considered high treason. Then we'll commit high treason. I have a list of names. People who died because of his scheme. They won't fall on their own." Within hours, Anika moved. She arranged transport to an underground strip about an hour outside Lisbon. There's a hangar under a false registration, Maya. Used to stash surveillance scrap. Find the Raven. It's your blind spot. Anika instructed, giving encrypted coordinates. The ride to the hangar was in a produce truck. Maya rode curled in the cargo hold, the sour scent of rotting fruit in her nose. She used the time to cobble together a small transmitter from pilfered radio parts. Her fingers worked by instinct despite the exhaustion rooted in her bones. When they arrived, Anika waited in the hangar amid boxes of equipment and dust, a thermos of coffee in hand, and a look that mixed admiration with worry. "You could disappear," Anika said, pouring strong black coffee. "Start over. No one would know." Maya shook her head, steam warming her face. "I wasn't made to disappear. I was made to fly and fight." They took both. Under a tarp in the center of the hangar sat the Raven, a large, decommissioned surveillance drone built for long-range work. They worked through the night. Anika's laptop was full of cracked programs and pirate keys. They uploaded the drone's memory, tracing every encrypted transfer tied to the officers who sold them out. What the screen revealed made Anika curse aloud. "Oh my God, Maya. It's worse than we thought." Bank trails led to defense contractors, and from there, to a web stretching all the way up to high command. The corruption wasn't a leak, it was a flood. General Corson, Director Vale, and several colonels were selling classified intelligence, not just for profit, but to manipulate geopolitics itself. The rot runs deeper than any of us imagined. They're using chaos to make a fortune and to rewrite the rules, Anika said, her hands buried in her hair. By dawn, Maya had a plan, sharp, dangerous, and inevitable. Corson and Vale will be at the Geneva Security Summit this week. They'll be surrounded by journalists and diplomats. Power. That's where we strike, Maya said, tapping the map. Infiltrate the summit. That's state security, Maya. I'll walk among them without being seen. I'll record every word, expose every lie, and stream it live to the global press before anyone can silence me again. Anika spent 2 days forging credentials, documents, and an entirely new identity for Maya. Ellen Cade, security consultant. Most importantly, she cut Maya's hair and dyed it, turning the once vibrant pilot into something sharper, colder, official. The first time Maya looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Trauma and transformation had reshaped her into a silent, lethal reflection. On the third night, she stood beside the drone on the runway, the wind tearing at her jacket, the horizon burning with first light. "Are you sure you're ready?" Anika asked, worry etched in her eyes. Maya's smile was small, taut, the kind that comes after losing everything but purpose. "Readiness died the day they threw me out of the sky. Anika, all that's left is action." She boarded a charter jet under a fake manifest, vanishing once again into the clouds. Below her, her enemies laughed in smoke-filled offices of power, believing the story of her death was finished. What they didn't know was that the author had come back, to rewrite it with truth. The private jet, small, stolen from an old flight manifest, and flown by one of Anika's contacts, cut through slate-colored clouds, descending toward a world that believed Maya Reeves was a ghost. Lisbon had been a launch pad. Geneva was the finish line. Large airports were off limits. Corson and Vale surveillance nets spanned the entire international security network. The pilot, a former airman deep in debt and owing Anika a favor, dropped her off at an abandoned rural airstrip near the Spanish border. Maya stepped off the plane in silence. The air smelled of pine and dry earth. Her forged credentials were tucked inside a diplomatic badge bearing the name Ellen Cade. Every step was calculated, part of a mental infiltration script she'd rewritten 100 times. Before she could move on to the next phase, she needed one last check, to confirm Anika's safety, and that the Raven drone was ready for remote launch. She holed up in a roadside motel. Ugly, anonymous, paid in dirty cash Anika had provided. Inside, she wedged a chair under the doorknob and stared into the cracked mirror, seeing the austere consultant she'd become. She switched on the small transmitter she'd built in the produce truck. "Anika, status." "On schedule, Maya." The Raven's hidden in a secure warehouse under a shipment of expensive wine. It launches at midnight, remote piloting active. The data loop is clean. Anika's voice was tense. They're searching. Not for you. Because of you. Corson triggered a high-level alert across the personnel tracking network. He knows someone survived, Maya said flatly. He knows his story is falling apart. Director Vale landed in Lisbon unannounced. Claims it's a security inspection. He's less than 20 kilometers from you, Maya. He came to make sure the dust stays buried. At the sound of Vale's name, Maya felt her body tighten. He was the man who had shoved her into the abyss, laughing as the cuffs cut into her wrists. What exactly is he doing? Meeting with a small group of consultants. In reality, they're Corson's personal enforcers. Men who follow orders and don't ask questions about who they're hunting. Vale's alert forced her to pivot. She couldn't wait for the morning high-speed train. She had to move now. The phone buzzed again. This time, Anika's voice was low, grave. Maya, Vale's at a local steakhouse, 10 minutes from your motel. He's with one of the consultants, a man named Salgado. They're reviewing photos. Your photos. Panic gave way to razor focus. Instead of fleeing, she'd do the unthinkable. Use Vale's proximity as an opportunity. I'm going to pay them a visit. What? Maya, that's suicide. Your cover won't survive a face-to-face. It's not a confrontation. It's data collection. I need to hear what Vale's telling Salgado. I need to understand their mindset before this house of lies collapses. And if Salgado has photos, he has information. Maya hung up. She slipped into a fitted black coat and laced the lightweight combat boots she'd hidden in her carry-on. Instead of a gun, she carried Elias's hunting knife, razor-sharp and silent. The steakhouse was crowded, full of families and tourists. Perfect cover. Noise was camouflage. She spotted Vale immediately. A large man in a gray suit, speaking low but with a visible edge. Salgado was smaller, twitchy, a folder spread out on the table. Maya sat at a nearby table, pretending to read the menu, the chatter in Portuguese masking her presence. She activated the hidden mic stitched into her coat lining. Their voices came through, faint but clear. Vale, just trash. If she survived, she's at the bottom of the ocean, Salgado. The report signed. Your job is to make sure not a single rumor spreads in Lisbon. None. Understood. Salgado. Understood, Director. And about the files Captain Reeves took, the flight plans? Vale. They're clean. Corson ensured the copy she found was embedded with false data and a virus that triggers on access. If she opened it, she thinks she's holding proof, but all she'll find is a dead end. The real trail's in Geneva, on our secure server. Maya's blood turned to ice. Corson had anticipated her move and baited her with fake evidence. Fury boiled, but she contained it. Their mistake was underestimating her. Vale, God, I'm sick of steak. I need some air. You stay here and finish those photos. I want every trace of this rumor dead by morning. Vale stood, but instead of heading for the restroom, he moved toward the service exit. Less crowded, easier to disappear. Maya knew this was her only chance to get what she needed. Salgado's folder was still on the table. She waited for the exact moment. A waitress bumped into a child, sending a glass tumbling, creating a brief but perfect distraction. Maya moved. Fast, silent, precise. The kind of precision that had once earned her medals in the cockpit. She stopped beside Salgado's table. He barely had time to look up. Need a napkin, sir? She asked in lightly accented Portuguese, brushing his shoulder just enough to draw his focus. In one fluid motion, Elias's hunting knife sliced through the strap of the briefcase. Maya lifted it and replaced it with a menu. Less than a second of sleight of hand. Salgado blinked, still distracted by the commotion. No, I'm fine, thank you, miss. Maya walked away with the same calm she'd entered with. But her luck ended there. When she reached a rental car on the side street, Vale was waiting, leaning against the vehicle, a shadow carved from the dark. His eyes were pure ice. You're not Ellen Cade, Vale said, voice low, dangerous. Maya froze. Didn't deny it. You're a pilot who fell, and I'm here to make sure you stay down. Captain Reeves. He drew a silenced pistol, swift, practiced. Maya didn't hesitate. She dropped, not in fear, but in a tactical dive. The knife, hidden beneath her sleeve, slid into her hand. Vale's bullet missed, ricocheting off the asphalt. Maya swung the stolen briefcase into his legs, knocking him off balance. As he staggered, she surged upward, using the momentum to slam him against the stone wall of the alley. Close combat, a dance she knew better than any waltz of corruption. Vale was stronger, but Maya was faster and far more desperate. He tried to fire at point-blank range. She caught his wrist, the air thick with the smell of metal and gunpowder. "You threw me out of the sky," she hissed. "You were a miscalculation." Vale barked, his voice cracking with panic. With a sharp twist, Maya reversed the grip, turning the pistol toward his throat. "The miscalculation," she whispered, "was thinking I needed a parachute to survive." She disarmed him cleanly, the gun clattering into the dark. Vale bolted. Maya caught him with Salgado's briefcase, striking him across the temple. He collapsed, dazed. She couldn't kill him. Vengeance wasn't the mission. Justice was. Using her bootlaces, she bound his wrists, then carved a small mark into his jacket with her knife. A takeoff symbol, the emblem she and Anika once used as a code of loyalty. She grabbed the briefcase, slipped into the car, and sped off, leaving Vale behind for Salgado to find. On the road to her rendezvous, she opened the briefcase. Inside weren't just photos, but a small encrypted ledger, filled with dates and coordinates of future meetings tied to Corson. Geneva was still the primary target, but the ledger pointed to something else, a more dangerous waypoint. Munich. One day before the summit, a secret meeting to finalize the sale of flight plans. Maya now had what she needed to draw the world's attention. A faster route, and the certainty that Vale, humiliated and marked, wouldn't dare tell Corson about their encounter. He'd simply report that the dust had settled, to save face. Maya's enemies had just handed her a shortcut to the truth. The road from Lisbon to Munich was long and brutal. She drove a rental to Madrid, where she used Ellen Cade's forged credentials to board a commercial night flight to Germany. On her lap rested Salgado's briefcase, now her most valuable possession. The encrypted ledger she'd stolen from Vale revealed the critical point. A secret meeting in Munich, the day before the Geneva summit. A final sale of classified intelligence to a foreign intermediary. If Maya could intercept that transaction, she wouldn't just have a paper trail. She'd have live proof. Video. Evidence the world couldn't deny. According to the decrypted notes, the meeting would take place in an old beer warehouse by the Isar River. Locals called it the Keller. She arrived in Munich beneath a gray, rain-smeared sky. The city, brick, glass, and efficiency, stood in sharp contrast to the rot festering within its shadows. From her new hideout, an Airbnb rented under yet another alias, Maya activated the Raven. Maya, Anika Raven status. Anika, over encrypted radio, drone launched remotely from Lisbon Strip. It's airborne, following the programmed route at a stealth altitude. ETA to Munich perimeter, for hours. For hours, Maya thought. Enough time to infiltrate the Keller before sunset, set the trap, and prepare for aerial transmission once the Raven arrived overhead. The warehouse was a labyrinth of old machinery and stacked crates. Using the same reconnaissance instincts that had earned her rank, Maya found an old ventilation shaft about 3 meters up, a narrow crawl space leading to a maintenance catwalk. She carried only what she needed: the hunting knife, the radio transmitter, and a military-grade microcamera Anika had smuggled into the briefcase. Infiltration was easy. The guards relied on locks and steel, not on intelligence. From the catwalk, she had a perfect vantage point over the meeting spot: an improvised table, 2 heavy chairs, and, in the center, a locked metal case. While waiting, she configured the microcamera. The feed would relay directly to the Raven, which, once overhead, would bounce the signal off a prepaid satellite. A global transmission. The truth, broadcast in high definition before anyone could stop it. She secured the camera on a steel beam, perfect angle. The case, the table, the faces, everything in frame. At exactly 7 p.m., the main door creaked open. The first to enter was General Corson, tall, imposing, with silver hair and an air of authority that seemed to shrink the room around him. He was the public face of a lie. The second was the buyer, Marius Volkov, an international arms dealer known for his cold demeanor and ties to unfriendly governments. General Corson, Volkov said, extending his hand. His voice was deep, heavy with a Russian accent. Mr. Volkov, punctual as always. They sat across the table. Corson looked confident, as if he were making the perfect chess move. Where are the flight plans, General? Corson pointed to the metal briefcase. Inside, you'll find a latest and most accurate list of assets, satellite codes, and non-allied supply routes. Information that will save your nation billions and secure control over strategic air corridors. Volkov smiled, a glint of gold flashing between his teeth. He opened the case. Inside was a data disk and several classified documents. The price is agreed upon, General. The transfer will be made through 50 shell company accounts. No trace left behind. From above, Maya felt pure adrenaline rush through her veins. She was recording everything. The ultimate proof. Then Corson did something unexpected. He lit a cigar and glanced up at the ceiling as if admiring the warehouse's architecture. Volkov, I'll be honest with you. This transaction comes with a cost, one your money can't cover. There is a small glitch in our security system. A rogue pilot, a girl named Maya Reeves. She tried to expose me. Foolish. He took a drag, the smoke curling into the dim air. My director, Vale, assured me the girl was eliminated, but betrayal leaves a bitter taste. That's why, in addition to the money, I want you to find Anika Joe, my former logistics officer. She's helping the rebel. I want her dead. No trace. Maya's heart stopped. He knew. He hadn't found her yet, but he knew she wasn't alone. And now, Anika was the target. The Raven was only 20 minutes out. Every instinct told Maya to run, to warn Anika. But if she fled now, Corson would complete the deal, Anika would die, and the truth would die with her. Action was the only option. Maya switched on a radio transmitter, tuning in to the same frequency Vale had used back in Lisbon. Using the micro camera's mic, she distorted her voice before transmitting. General Corson, the rogue pilot isn't dead. She's listening. Corson froze, the cigar halfway to his lips. Volkov spun around, pulling a heavy pistol from his coat. Who's there? Corson shouted, his commanding tone cracking into panic. Maya dropped from the catwalk. The fall was cushioned by the dusty floor, but the sound echoed sharply through the room. The girl you tried to erase, Maya hissed, stepping out of the shadows, aiming the micro camera at them like a weapon. You're impossible. Corson's fury broke through his composure. Volkov smirked. A woman to bring down a corrupt general? How insolent. Insolence is just another word for truth, Volkov, Maya replied, the camera fixed on his face. This deal is being broadcast. The world is watching. Volkov fired. Maya dubbed behind a stack of wooden barrels. The gunshot shattered the silence of the warehouse. If this goes public, I'll kill you, General. Volkov barked, turning the gun on Corson. She's bluffing. She can't transmit from here. Corson yelled, sweat beading on his forehead. Maya needed more time. The Raven was almost overhead. She broke cover, sprinting in a zigzag pattern as Volkov fired twice and missed. Above the warehouse, the Raven drone hovered, invisible against the stormy sky. Anika activated the relay. At the exact moment Corson handed the data disk to Volkov, Maya's micro camera flashed. The broadcast had begun. Corson grabbed his phone to call security, but it was too late. His face, his deal, the stolen flight plans, all of it was now live. General, your career ends here, Maya said, her voice a mix of triumph and pain. In a final act of desperation, Corson lunged for the briefcase. Volkov, protecting his purchase, shoved him away. The case fell, the data disk rolling into the shadows. German police, alerted by Anika's encrypted signal, stormed the warehouse. Hands up, Polize. Volkov bolted through the back door, clutching the empty briefcase, believing he still had the disc. Corson was handcuffed, his once commanding face now pale, hollow, defeated. He looked at Maya with a hatred that burned cold. "You're going to die for this, Reeves. I promise you that." Maya didn't answer. She crouched down, searched through the darkness, and found the data disc. Not Volkov's, but the one from McKellar. The real copy, hidden inside the briefcase. She slipped it into her pocket. The camera went dark. Her mission in Munich was over. As she walked out, blending into the chaos and the swarm of German agents, Maya knew the broadcast had been the first shot fired. The war, however, was far from over. Corson had fallen, but Vale was still free, and Anika was now in the crosshairs. Geneva waited, and the data disk was the key to salvation. The world woke up to the news from Munich. Maya's transmission, short but undeniable, had gone viral. The image of General Corson being handcuffed, the cold face of the oligarch Marius Volkov, and their recorded discussion about assets and supply routes ignited a diplomatic firestorm. Chaos had just become Maya's newest ally. She drove from Munich to Geneva, crossing tense borders under heightened security alerts. Now, she wasn't just being hunted as a missing pilot. She was being hunted as the key to the largest military corruption scandal in decades. Still, her cover as Elenina Cade, a severe and no-nonsense security consultant, worked better than ever. With the world attention fixed on Corson and Volkov, no one was looking for Captain Maya Reeves. Her next target, the Transatlantic Security Summit, held inside the Paletta Nations in Geneva, a nerve center of power and espionage. It was the only place where she could make sure the truth wouldn't just be seen, but officially recorded and protected by global authorities. Her mission had shifted. It was no longer about proving corruption. That was done. Now, it was about exposing Director Vale and using Corson's data disk to clear Anika Joe's name. Maya knew Vale would be there. He was Corson's last operational link, the man desperate to bury the scandal and destroy the disk before it reached daylight. A coded message from Anika came through. Vale's at the summit. Moves among security with maximum discretion. Trust no one. The next morning, Maya infiltrated the UN complex with her forged ID badge. The place buzzed with anxious diplomats and frantic reporters. She spotted Vale in the media wing, speaking to a group of grim-faced security officers. He was calm, which was far more dangerous than fear. Maya needed a secure spot to access the data. The only place with enough anonymity was the press room, a maze of cables and workstations. When Vale started to move, Maya followed. He headed toward an elevator that led down to the sublevel, the security archive. Taking the service stairs, Maya arrived there first and hid in the shadows. The basement was quiet. Concrete walls, faint hum of servers, the cold echo of isolation. The elevator opened. Vale stepped out with one of his guards, a large, muscular man holding a handheld signal jammer. Vale's plan was clear: block all transmissions, steal the disk, and vanish. Maya struck first. While Vale and the guard walked toward the archive, she tossed a tiny electromagnetic pulse detonator, no bigger than a lighter, into a nearby junction box. The EMP flared silently. The corridor plunged into darkness. The jammer in the guard's hand went dead. Static crackled, the servers whined, and then silence. The guard reacted instantly, flashlight beam slicing through the black. He raised his gun, sweeping the corridor. Maya didn't attack. She used sound. She ran, kicked a metal cabinet, and dropped to the floor, making it seem like something fell farther down the hall. The guard followed the noise. Vale, smarter than his muscle, stayed put. He knew the EMP was targeted. "You're an idiot, Maya. You can't win this." Vale's voice echoed off the concrete. Maya emerged from the dark, fast, precise. She slammed into him, driving him against the elevator doors. The fight was quick, brutal, and silent. Vale swung. Maya blocked. Fueled by anger and purpose, she drove her elbow into his neck and pressed Elias's hunting knife, still stained with dirt, against his throat. "Where's Anika's name?" she hissed. "She's a traitor like you." Vale spat, trembling. "No, She's the only honest person in your web of lies. Where are the files that frame her? In my inner pocket, Maya ripped his coat pocket open and pulled out a small memory card. A ForgeCom log designed to link Anika to the Munich leak. She exhaled, her voice low. Justice. Maya pocketed both the memory card and Corson's disk. Then she made her final move. Instead of killing Vale, she dragged him into the server room. Using a loose network cable, she tied him to a chair, facing a dead security camera. She connected her transmitter directly into the Paletta Nation's main data line. With Anika's software, she uploaded both the memory card and Corson's data disk into the UN's global network. Her goal: clear Anika's name, expose Vale as Corson's accomplice, and deliver the evidence to an authority that couldn't be bribed or silenced. As the upload began, Maya looked at Vale, bound, terrified, powerless. Captain Miller and the others died for this, Vale. Now, you'll be the proof. The upload completed. Anika's record cleared. Corson and Vale's crimes permanently archived on secure servers around the world. The guard returned, confused. What happened here, Director? Maya slipped away in the chaos, fading into the dark corridors. 5 minutes later, when the power returned, the guard found Vale tied to the chair, his mouth open, eyes fixed on the server monitor. On the screen, his own face and Corson's flashed beneath a breaking headline in multiple languages. Transatlantic Corruption Network exposed. Files uploaded to United Nations servers. Maya was gone. She was already back in the press room, blending into the crowd of frantic journalists shouting into their phones about the story of the decade. Her mission was complete. She sent one last encrypted radio message to Anika. The storm has passed. You're clear. I'm going off the grid. Goodbye, my friend. Seconds later, Anika's reply came through. Don't disappear, Maya. The world still needs the truth. Wait for me. Together, we're stronger. Maya smiled. On paper, she was still Elenina Cade. But in her heart, she was Captain Reeves again, the pilot who once flew above clouds. She had cleared the skies. But the hunt for the last conspirator was far from over. Stepping toward the exit, she melted into the flow of diplomats and reporters rushing through the Paletta Nations. Outside, the air over Geneva smelled like ozone and panic. Maya disappeared into the chaos, calm, steady, invisible, carrying the weight of a world that was finally starting to wake up. The transmission hadn't just exposed corruption. It had declared a digital war. She found refuge in a crowded cafe near Lake Geneva. Sitting in a dark corner, she ordered a plain black coffee and fixed her eyes on the television above the counter. The news anchor's face was grave. Headline: Global Command rocked by military asset sale scandal. Director Vale arrested in Geneva. General Corson flees after deal exposed. Maya's lips curved into a bitter smile as she watched Vale being escorted away, his face swollen with rage and humiliation. Meanwhile, in Lisbon, Anika Jo was practically on fire. Did you see what happened? Her voice crackled through the encrypted radio, fast and breathless. The UN system is protecting the files. Corson's name is all over the flight plans. And yours too. The whole world's asking, who is Captain Maya Reeves? It doesn't matter who I am, Maya replied, watching the reflection of the TV screen shimmer against the cafe's window. What matters is what they did. Vale's been caught. He had the forged evidence against you. You're free now, Anika. The radio went silent. Then Maya heard something she hadn't from her friend in a long time. A sob of relief. Thank you, Maya. You saved me. But you need to disappear. Corson and Vale may be in custody, but the system that made them has too many heads. Volkov's exposure in Munich was the worst part. He's a monster. He won't let this go. Anika's warning cut through Maya's brief moment of victory. The Russian oligarch, Marius Volkov, had lost $1 billion deal. And worse, his reputation had been dragged through the international mud. He had power, and an army that didn't answer to any government or law. Maya slipped her hand into her jacket pocket and pulled out the real Corson data disk, the one she'd recovered from the Munich warehouse. I still have this, Anika. The real disk. What went to the UN was just the tip of the iceberg. This one contains access keys to 3 weapons depots they were planning to sell. Burn it, Maya. Destroy it. It's too dangerous. No, it's my leverage. If Volkov comes after me, he'll come for this. And when he does, I'll take him somewhere he never thought he'd go. He's the last link, the final rod. Maya cut the transmission. She knew she was stepping into the most dangerous phase yet. Fighting treasonous officers was one thing. Going up against an oligarch with limitless resources was another. She left the cafe and returned to her rented car. The original plan, vanishing into anonymity, was gone. She couldn't disappear while Volkov was still out there hunting for the disc. Now, her path was clear: build the perfect trap. She needed a place secure enough to draw him in, but isolated enough that their final confrontation wouldn't claim more lives. The encrypted ledger she'd stolen from Vale in Lisbon mentioned an emergency rendezvous point, a small, abandoned port town on the coast of Sardinia, Italy, a site Corson and Volkov once used for secret exchanges, far beyond the reach of any state surveillance. Maya knew instantly. It was the perfect trap. She would go there. On the way to the Geneva airport, she made one last stop. She recorded a video message on her phone, clear, steady, resolute. To Anika, if I don't come back, this must be released immediately. It contains the location of Corson's disk and all access codes. Use it to save as many lives as you can. She uploaded it to a cloud server with a timed encryption key, trusting that Anika would handle the rest. At the airport, Maya tossed her Elenina Cade credentials into the trash. She didn't need disguises anymore. She was Captain Maya Reeves, and now she was the hunter. She bought a one-way ticket to southern Italy under a generic name, paid in cash. As she waited to board, her reflection in the terminal window stared back at her. Not the broken pilot who'd fallen from the sky, but a woman calm and fierce, sharpened by purpose. She took the real Corson data disk and taped it inside her jacket lining. That was the bait. The world was searching for an anonymous hero. Volkov was hunting for a traitor. Maya smiled, tight and cold. All right, Volkov. The hunt's over. I'm the bait, and you're the catch. She boarded the plane bound for the lonely island where her final act would unfold. Sardinia was harsh, wind-beaten and dry, its hills covered in sunburned brush. A far cry from Geneva's polished calm. Maya landed at a small secondary airport, where security was minimal. The abandoned port town lay on the island's northern edge, isolated, forgotten. She rented an old Jeep, the kind that could handle the broken dirt roads leading to the ghost port. As she drove, the air was filled with the scent of wild rosemary and sea salt. But to Maya, it smelled like gunpowder waiting to ignite. The port was exactly as Vale's ledger described. Crumbling concrete buildings, a decayed pier, rusted cranes looming over the sea like steel skeletons. Perfect for secret deals. Perfect for an ambush. Maya got to work. The night was her ally. Step 1, surveillance. Using her field transmitter, she scanned maritime and aerial frequencies to ensure Volkov's team couldn't sneak in unseen. Step 2, traps. With Elias's old wire, fragments of glass, and scattered stones, she rigged contact alarms throughout the main warehouse, the one Corson and Vale had used for their operations. A faint sound, masked by the wind, but distinct to trained ears. Step 3, the bait. The Corson data disk, hidden in her jacket, her refuge and vantage point, the top of the main crane. The climb was brutal, but from up there she could see everything. A full 360 degrees view of the port and any approaching convoy. At dawn, as the sun broke over the sea in streaks of copper and blue, Maya was ready. She activated the transmitter and sent one short, encrypted message. On a frequency she knew Volkov's men always monitored. Corson's asset is in Sardinia, at the site of the last transaction. Come get it. The waiting began. Tension wound tight in her chest. She replayed her escape routes, ambush angles, breathing rhythms. She thought of Anika, of Elias, of the soldiers who had died. It all led to this moment. 3 hours later, The silence shattered, not from sea or sky, but from the road. Roaring engines and the crunch of armored tires. 4 black SUVs rolled into the ghost port, gleaming and menacing, followed by a camouflage comms truck. Volkov never traveled alone. Around 10 heavily armed mercenaries poured out, professionals, disciplined, sweeping the area with assault rifles. They moved like a strike team, not bodyguards. Then, Marius Volkov emerged from the lead SUV. No bulletproof vest, just a cashmere coat and expensive sunglasses. The calm of a man who believed the world still belonged to him. Maya Reeves, I know you're here. His deep Russian accent thundered through a megaphone. Where's my data disk, Captain? You cost me a fortune with your little act of justice. Maya stayed silent atop the crane. She needed him inside the warehouse. Volkov barked orders. His men fanned out. The first team entered the main structure. Crack! A sharp snap of wire, followed by a strangled cry. One of her contact alarms had worked. She's in the area. Find her, Volkov roared. Maya descended the maintenance ladder, silent and fast. The plan was simple. Draw Volkov into the warehouse. The maze where sightlines were broken and control was hers. She slipped through a hole in the roof and moved like a shadow through the dark interior. The mercenaries were tense, flashlights cutting through dust and ruin. Maya used the environment, knocking over planks, tossing debris, creating false sounds to disorient them. She was everywhere and nowhere. Idiots. She's unarmed. She's toying with you. Volkov shouted, stepping into the warehouse himself, impatient, clutching a handheld radio. Volkov, I have what you want. Maya's voice echoed through the hallways, distorted, taunting. For a split second, she stepped into the open, letting the glint of the disc flash from her coat, then vanished again into darkness. Gunfire erupted, wild and echoing off the concrete. The disc. Get the disc. Volkov barked. In the chaos, Maya charged. She wasn't fighting to survive. She was fighting to end this. She slammed into Volkov, driving him into a concrete wall. He fell hard, but drew a combat knife from his belt. The fight was savage, close, and real. Steel against steel, the weight of rage and justice colliding. Volkov was powerful, but Maya was precision. The survivor who'd fallen from the sky and risen sharper. He slashed. She blocked. He tried brute force. She countered with leverage and speed. Elias's hunting knife gleamed in her hand, the same blade that had written her story in blood and sacrifice. You don't buy lives, Volkov, she hissed through clenched teeth. You don't buy honor. Volkov laughed through the pain. And you are proof that honor is expensive, Captain. With a roar, he shoved her backward. His mercenaries were closing in. Her window was closing fast. She sprinted toward the back of the warehouse, to the maintenance pit near the seawall. Volkov chased her, his breath ragged, knife ready. At the edge, Maya stopped abruptly, feigning exhaustion. Volkov closed in, victory flashing in his eyes. Now you fall, Captain. At that exact moment, Maya threw the data disk, not to the ground, but straight into the ocean, through a gaping hole in the wall. No, Volkov bellowed, diving after it, his shoes skidding on the slick concrete. Maya used his momentum. She grabbed Volkov by the collar and shoved him into the hole. He fell into the maintenance pit, a scream of rage and shock cut short by the harsh sound of impact. The mercenaries arrived. They saw the pit. They saw Maya, panting but victorious. Drop your weapons, she shouted, her voice echoing with authority. Volkov is contained. The disc is in the sea. Your job is over. The mercenaries hesitated. They weren't loyal. They were paid. And the man who paid them was in the pit. Maya seized the moment. She ran to the jeep and sped toward the road. As she drove, she saw the Italian Coast Guard approaching the shore. Anika had sent an emergency tip-off. Maya stopped the jeep at the cliff's edge, watching the sea. Volkov would be found and questioned by authorities. His empire of lies was in ruins. The mission was complete. The sky seemed clearer than it had in months. Sunlight struck the water, creating an endless shimmer. Maya removed her torn jacket, no longer needed. The handcuffs had thrown her into the abyss, but her courage had brought her back to fight for the truth. She called Anika over a secure line. Anika, Volkov is out of play. The disc is at the bottom of the sea. I won. Anika responded, her voice trembling. You are incredible, Maya. The world knows your name. Then let's make sure they remember the truth. It's time to rest, to heal. Maya gazed at the sea that had tried to swallow her. Now, it was a promise of peace. Sardinia faded behind her, along with the noise of sirens and helicopters. The Italian Coast Guard and police, alerted by Anika's cryptic warning, found Marius Volkov trapped in the maintenance pit, injured, furious, and without the data disk. His capture, tied to the Geneva scandal, was the final piece in a global domino. Maya traveled into the Swiss interior, to a secluded safe house prepared by Anika. A dark wooden cabin nestled in the Alps, far from roads and prying eyes. The first week was devoted to recovery. Physically, Maya was exhausted. Her body was covered in bruises from the fall and the fights in Lisbon and Sardinia. But the deepest wound was invisible. She spent hours sitting by the fireplace, the sound of flames and falling snow outside the only noise. After months living in darkness, hearing explosions and gunfire, the silence was deafening. Silence is the hardest thing to get used to, Maya whispered, not looking at her friend. I hear them. I hear Miller falling. I hear Corson laughing. I know, Anika replied, setting groceries and a laptop filled with news reports on the table. But now, the world hears too. Anika opened the laptop. Aftermath of the storm. Corson and Vale, arrested on charges of treason and conspiracy. The full extent of their corruption network was being revealed by the United Nations and a coalition of allied countries. Marius Volkov, detained in Italy. Though the real data disk was never found, his involvement in a Munich transaction and attempt to hunt Maya were enough to dismantle much of his empire. Anika Joe, her name was officially cleared. The forged documentation by Vale, recovered by Maya in Geneva, proved she was being framed. You didn't just save my life, Maya, Anika said, her voice trembling. You saved the honor of the man who died. Miller's name, his story, they're being told now. They're heroes, not traitors. Anika's words brought the first true sense of relief. The pain was still there, but it was no longer just pain, it was justice. And the military, the system, they're in shock. Your general has been toppled, but the structure that allowed him to rise, that's the part we'll face next, Anika said, serving hot tea. Maya's name remained a mystery. The press knew a Captain Reeves had been the source, but her identity was obscured by multiple false identities, wrong coordinates, and her officially declared death not yet revoked. Officially, you're still dead, Anika concluded. It's the best protection we can have. Dead to them. But not to me, Maya said, looking at her arm, where the handcuff scar was beginning to heal. Anika handed Maya her old flight logbook, worn, filled with technical notes, aircraft sketches, and on the last page, a list of dreams Maya had written as a cadet. You're going to need this, Anika said, to remember who you really are. Maya flipped through the notebook. The smell of aviation fuel and aged paper brought a wave of nostalgia. She stopped on the last page. Fly faster than light. Never accept a no. Build something that flies higher. I can't fly anymore, Maya said softly. They took my wings. They took your aircraft. But your wings? They're still here. Anika touched her chest. You brought down an empire with a hunting knife and a stolen radio. You don't need a fighter jet. You need purpose. Anika had a proposal. I used my contacts and cleared your death record enough so you can exist in shadows. Not as a public hero, but someone who doesn't need to hide in a hole. I know a place. A discreet research program for unmanned flight technologies in isolation. Maya hesitated. Research. Away from action. It's a place to hide, but also a place to create. You built the Raven from scrap. Imagine what you can build with resources. The next generation of eyes in the sky. Technology no one can shut down or bribe. Maya looked out the window at the snow-capped peak. She touched the symbol of the plane taking off she had carved on Vale's jacket. It wasn't a symbol of revenge. It was a symbol of rebirth. "What's the program called?" "Horizon Zero," Anika replied. "And your job would be to make sure no one ever uses flight technology to lie again." Maya closed the flight log. The cabin silence now felt welcoming. The fight's noise had ended. It was time to prepare for the next flight. "I accept," Maya said, "but not to hide. I accept to rebuild." The Horizon Zero research lab wasn't in the clouds, but it was close enough to inspire. It was in a discreet underground complex beneath a decommissioned military base near Zurich, Switzerland. Silence was law, and cutting-edge technology was kept away from politics. To the world, Captain Maya Reeves was dead. To the team of 5 civilian engineers and technicians at Horizon Zero, she was Dr. Lena Torres, a focused and discreet aerodynamic specialist, recruited from a German tech firm. Maya threw herself into the work. Flight technology was her native language. She worked with drones, not simple surveillance ones, but prototypes capable of long-duration flights and communication systems that couldn't be jammed or tampered with. The work was healing. The clean lab, filled with tools and electronic components, became her new cockpit. Instead of piloting, she built aircraft. Anika visited every 2 weeks, bringing reports from the outside world and the only real human contact Maya had. Vale and Corson had been sentenced. Anika reported one rainy afternoon while Maya soldered a tiny circuit. Long prison terms. Volkov too. Justice, though slow, worked. And the system? Maya asked, eyes never leaving the microscope. "The system is being cleaned up. Your exposure forced an audit. Many people were removed. Their work ultimately made a difference, Maya." Maya nodded. Revenge was complete. Redemption was a longer path. Anika noticed the change. Maya was no longer the furious woman who emerged from the sea, nor the combat machine who fought in Geneva. She was calm, but with an almost obsessive focus. "You need to take a break sometimes, Maya. The world won't crumble if you take an hour off." "It's not the world I'm worried about, Anika. It's the next Corson, the next Vale." Her obsession had a project name: Icarus. Project Icarus was a stealth, unmanned aircraft designed to fly undetected, but with a transmission system that couldn't be shut down. Its goal was to create an eye in the sky that worked for truth, not for profit or betrayal. One night, while working alone, Maya picked up her old flight notebook. She reread the cadet's list of dreams. Fly faster than light. Never accept a no. Build something that flies higher. She took a pen and crossed out the 3rd item, not because she had achieved it, but because its meaning had changed. She wrote a new goal. 3. Build a sky that cannot be stolen. At that moment, a vivid memory hit her, not of combat, but of home. She remembered her younger brother, David. David, who had loved airplanes. David, who had died in a military hospital during a support mission. The same mission that Maya later discovered had been compromised by Corson's sold plans. David hadn't died from a direct attack, but from a failed medical supply chain caused by corruption. David's pain had always been Maya's silent pain. His death had been dismissed as a logistical casualty. Horizon Zero wasn't just about technology. It was about honoring David's memory. She called Anika. "I need David Reeves' logistics file. The full audit. I want to know exactly where Corson's system failed on the day David died." Anika hesitated. "Maya, this will hurt, and the audit might not be clear. I'm not looking for clarity. I'm looking for the ultimate truth. I fell, but David was erased. I need to know." Anika agreed to search. In the following days, Maya worked on Icarus with renewed intensity. She rewrote the code, building a bulletproof communication system that could transmit data to the global network from any altitude, bypassing any military blockade. She was using her skills to close the door that Corson had opened, the door to selling secrets. When Anika returned, her face was tense. "David's file," she said, handing over a disk. "It's not entirely clear, but Corson's supply line was diverted that day. Not for profit, Maya, for internal sabotage." Maya looked at the disk. "David's file. Her redemption was tied to her deepest pain. It wasn't just about profit, Maya whispered, tears welling in her eyes. It was about power. They got rid of anyone who could be a threat. David wasn't a casualty. He was eliminated. Horizon Zero was more than a refuge. It was the place where she would turn her quiet rage into the strongest shield against darkness. She inserted the disk into her computer and opened the log. The coordinates of David's failure became the coordinates of her new purpose. Maya looked at the Icarus prototype, a sleek form of metal and carbon fiber. It will fly, David, and no one else will be silenced. Months passed at a breakneck pace underground in Zurich. Maya didn't just work. She consumed herself with Project Icarus. David's disk, analyzed and reanalyzed, confirmed the brutal truth. Her brother hadn't died from ordinary corruption, but from surgical sabotage, designed to silence anyone who might cross Corson's path. This revelation didn't break her, it strengthened her. The pain of loss became the cleanest, most potent fuel for Icarus' engine. The prototype evolved from a sketch into a sleek, formidable machine. Not lethal in weapons, but lethal in truth. The Icarus drone was nearly invisible to radar, and its communication system, dubbed Echo, could transmit encrypted data to any global network, ignoring military blocks. It was Maya's antidote to lies. "It's ready," Maya told Anika one spring morning, pointing to Icarus suspended in the underground hangar. Her voice was hoarse with exhaustion, but steady. "It's a masterpiece, Maya. You've turned it into something that transcends technology. But what about you? Are you ready?" Anika asked. Maya looked at her hands. The handcuff scars had healed, but the silver trace remained. "I need to close a cycle. There's a debt I need to repay, not of blood, but of gratitude." Maya was referring to the old fisherman, Elias, the man who had rescued her from the sea in Lisbon. He had given her the first chance to survive. Anika had kept discreet contact with Elias, ensuring he was safe and that his secret was secure. Elias had told Anika he missed his hunting knife, the same knife Maya had used to free herself in Lisbon, Geneva, and Sardinia. He lives in a small fishing village in southern Portugal, near where the boat docked. Anika informed her. "He's a good man, Maya, but if you go, be quick and discreet. Your death is still your greatest protection." Maya traveled to Portugal in disguise, this time as a quiet tourist. She carried no weapons, only her old coat, a backpack, and Elias' hunting knife. The fishing village was a cluster of white houses against the bright blue Atlantic. It smelled of salt, fish, and simple life. She found Elias on the dock, mending nets. The sun shone on his wrinkled face, making him seem like a stone monument. Maya approached silently. "The sea has been rough these past weeks, hasn't it, Elias?" she said quietly. Elias looked up. His deep, tired eyes rested on Maya. There was no immediate recognition, only the familiarity of someone who had seen too much. "The sea is always rough, miss," he replied, his voice hoarse from the wind. "It's a lung that never sleeps." Maya took the hunting knife from her backpack. It was clean, sharp, with a polished handle. "This knife, it belongs to you," she said, extending the object. "It cut the wire that held me and helped me cut through lies. It's yours, and I came to return it." Elias took the knife, feeling the familiar weight in his hand. He looked at the silver scars on Maya's wrist, visible beneath her rolled-up sleeve. Then he understood. "The storm didn't sink you, did it?" Elias said, his eyes shining with simple wisdom. "It just threw me back to where I needed to be. Truth is a parachute that opens late, but it saves us," Maya said. Elias smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his wrinkles. "You know, miss, I told those policemen who asked about you that I had never seen such a woman. I lied. I've never seen anyone like you. Honor isn't in rank. It's in the heart." He placed the knife back on his belt. "Go back to where you need to be, and don't stop flying, even if your wings aren't made of metal." Maya felt a wave of emotion that almost made her cry. He was a simple man, but his validation meant more than all the medals Corson had hung on his chest. "Elias, thank you. For my life. And for the lesson," Maya said. She said nothing more. She simply hugged the fisherman, short and fierce, the only payment he would accept. As she stepped back, Elias called after her. "Miss, where are you off to now?" Maya looked up at the wide, open sky. "I'm going to build a sky no one can steal." She returned to Zurich, but this time her heart felt light. She had paid her debt of gratitude. Her journey from survival had become one of creation. Captain Reeves was finally free to be Dr. Lena Torres, architect of the truth. Icarus waited, and the next step in her final plan depended on it. Horizon Zero's main hangar was an echoing subterranean chamber, clean, cold. In the center, on a magnetic launch platform, sat Icarus. It had roughly a 3-meter wingspan, a black, angular silhouette that seemed to drink in the light. Not a weapon, rather the most powerful machine Maya had ever built. "This is your chance to walk away, Dr. Torres," Anika said from the launch console, her tone serious. "The ecosystem you built isn't legal. It bypasses every air sovereignty law and military protocol. If they detect this, there won't be a death certificate to protect you this time." Maya, wearing a neat technical uniform, placed her hand on Icarus's cold hull. "Legality ended the day they threw me out of a helicopter. I'm not seeking approval, Anika. I'm seeking transparency. If we build a system no one can shut down, lies will no longer hide in the dark." Her focus was complete, her breathing slow and measured. In her eyes, the image of David and the scars on her wrists were all the justification she needed. Anika nodded and initiated the sequence. Icarus countdown started. Structural integrity, 100%. Passive navigation systems online. Maya powered up Echo, a small module embedded in the drone's airframe, designed to access global networks through satellite backdoor frequencies, hopping hub to hub undetected. "Activate Echo protocol," Maya ordered. On the console, Icarus's flight data blinked green. The aircraft emitted no active radar signature. It was a silent shadow. The magnetic launch platform hummed. Icarus slid along the rail and, with a soft whoosh, launched up through a reinforced vertical shaft camouflaged beneath an agricultural field. Icarus's first flight rode under a clear spring sky. At Horizon Zero, Maya and Anika watched on screens that tracked the drone with geothermal and environmental sensors. Cruise speed achieved. Altitude 20,000 feet. Undetectable, Anika reported. "Where are you sending it, Maya?" "To UN headquarters." "No," Maya replied. "This isn't a denunciation. It's a warning." Icarus was headed for the Global Strategic Command, the bureaucratic heart that had allowed Corson to rise. The GSE ran the planet's most encrypted, secure communications network. If Icarus could get in, it would prove no information was truly safe from the eye of truth. Icarus climbed over Switzerland, crossing the Alps. Its stealth profile was invisible even to commercial pilot sensors. Approaching the GSC perimeter. "Active signal blockade," Anika warned. "This is the strongest block on Earth, Maya. Even Echo might not penetrate." Maya inhaled. "Echo doesn't try to penetrate, Anika. It jumps. Engage quantum leap on frequency 7. Icarus will use Corson's disabled telemetry as a bridge." Anika hesitated, then complied. Quantum leap engaged. On the display, Icarus's flight path seemed to vanish for a beat. A tense silence filled the bunker. "Connection lost," Anika said. "Maya, we lost the drone." Maya leaned over the screen, fingers flying across the keyboard, rewriting code in real time, forcing a link. "No, it's not lost. It's inserting." A second later, the console lit up. A new node blinked inside the GSC firewall on the map. "It's in," Anika cried. Icarus is inside the Global Strategic Command's primary communications network. Impossible. They don't even know it's there. Maya stepped back, letting Anika absorb the magnitude of what had happened. "Icarus, transmit one-word text. Priority. Maximum. Channel. Personal inbox of the new director," Maya ordered. Anika typed, hands trembling slightly. The transmission went out instantly. No alarms, no defensive feedback, just the certainty the message had been delivered. "What did you send?" Anika asked, staring at Maya, her face pale. Maya walked to her old jacket, took up her flight log, and read the final note she had written, the line that had set her free. "I sent them the price of a secret," Maya said, her gaze fixed on the single word now blinking in the personal inbox of the highest military command on Earth. The word read, "Truth." The test was a success. Icarus was now the eye watching the watchers. Maya Reeves was no longer merely a fugitive. She had become a silent guardian who could slip into any system at any time. She had built a sky that could not be stolen, and now it was time to put it into permanent operation. 6 months passed since Icarus's silent flight over the Global Strategic Command. The impact of the word truth was subtle but seismic. No sirens blasted, but the message registered. The era of total impunity was over. Horizon Zero had evolved from a research lab into the hub of an unofficial surveillance operation. Maya and Anika worked as a pair. Anika using logistics contacts to spot failure points of corruption, Maya sending Icarus to verify. They didn't aim to topple governments or incite revolt. Their goal was stability through transparency, leaking critical facts to investigative journalists or internal auditors, forcing institutions to self-correct. "It's an information war, Maya," Anika said over a secure video link, her face reflected on a lab monitor. "You don't defeat them with bombs. You defeat them by making lies have nowhere left to hide." Maya was healthier now, lighter. Her hair had grown. The light in her eyes had shifted from rage to purpose. The outside world had forgotten Captain Reeves. She was a quiet legend, rumored in the corridors of military power. Through Anika, an official offer arrived from Reformed High Command, a sealed letter. The offer, full pardon for desertion and reinstatement with honors, on the condition she worked for them, using Echo and Icarus. They wanted to turn her from ghost into a secret asset. Anika looked at her with hopeful expectation. "This is what you always wanted, Maya. Your name cleared, your rank back. You can fly again. Officially." Maya took the letter, feeling the weight of the official letterhead. She had dreamed of this moment. Honor returned, a fighter jet under her control, the roar of an engine beneath her. She tore the letter without opening it. The rip echoed through the bunker. "I'm a pilot, Anika, not a tool." "What does that mean?" "It means they still don't get it. My code of honor isn't blind loyalty to a uniform. It's loyalty to truth. If I rejoin their system, I risk becoming the problem again. I won't be a military secret. I want to be their doubt." Her rejection was not born of bitterness, but of self-knowledge. She had survived the fall. She had seen what absolute power did to men of honor. And now, what will you do with Horizon Zero? With Icarus? Maya smiled, a small, real smile. She walked to a corner of the lab, where she had stored a wooden box. Inside was a small radio kit, the same model the fisherman Elias used, but modern and encrypted. "I will build something that flies, yes. But not only a metal. I will build something that flies in people. I'm not returning to the military. I'm going home." "Home? Where is home for a ghost?" asked Anika. "Where the ground is solid and the sky is clear. Where the truth is simple and the lesson is the most important thing. I'm going to where my flight code really matters." Maya had made a decision that freed her from all past pain. She was no longer the captain, nor the doctor, nor the fugitive. She was simply Maya, the survivor. She left Horizon Zero in Anika's capable hands, ensuring Icarus continued its silent watch. Stepping out of the bunker and feeling the sun on the Alps, Maya shivered, not from betrayal, but from the warmth of a new beginning. She had to fulfill her ultimate purpose. The next chapter would not be about fleeing, but about finding. Maya's journey led her back to Portugal, but not to the darkness of the port city. She sought a place with roots, a place of simple community, far from the destructive complexity of power that had thrown her from the sky. She settled in a small coastal village in the Algarve, sunny and peaceful. Using the skills she had learned from Elias and discreet funds transferred by Anika, she purchased a small plot of land with a view of the sea. Maya could not fly a fighter jet, but she could teach others to soar. She began a small mentorship and survival program, for local youth. It was not a military center or elite school. It was a simple hall where she taught the skills that had kept her alive: navigation, first aid, basic aerodynamics, and, most importantly, the code of honor. She called it altitude and hope, in honor of her father's words. Her students were boys and girls society had discarded, carrying buried dreams. They came to her with heads down, lives heavy with disillusionment. Maya never told them about helicopters, Corson, or Volkov. She spoke only of flight. The most important flight, she would say, her voice calm and authoritative, is not the one that takes you fastest or highest in the sky. It's the flight that carries you from despair to purpose. One day, a young boy, Tiago, who had lost his mother and carried silent rage, asked, looking at the silver scars on her wrists, "Teacher, what happened to your hands? Were you imprisoned?" Maya looked at the scars, now nearly invisible under sun-hardened skin. She breathed deeply. It was time to share the simplest truth. "I was imprisoned by the lies of others," she said. "I discovered that powerful people traded truth for greed. They tried to silence me, threw me from a helicopter, handcuffed, into the sea, in the middle of a storm. Silence filled the hall. I should have died down there. No one expected me to survive. But I didn't. And I didn't because of my strength. I survived because of my choice." "What choice, teacher?" asked Tiago, eyes fixed on her. "The choice that my life would not end with their betrayal. The choice that truth mattered more than fear, more than my life. I fell, Tiago. But in the fall, I chose the angle that would take me to survival. I used the very force they used to try to destroy me, to save myself." Maya touched her scars. "These marks aren't signs of weakness. They are reminders. The system tried to erase me, but all it did was give me a new purpose." She pointed to the clear sky above the sea. Often in life, we are thrown into the abyss. We lose a loved one. We lose honor. We lose direction. Darkness envelopes us, chains us. But true courage is not in never falling. It is in being betrayed, falling into darkness, and in the instant before hitting the ground, using everything you've learned to adjust your angle and strike the water like a blade. You don't need parachutes to fly, boys. You need integrity. Because integrity is the only engine that never fails and the only wing that no one can steal. Tiago and the others looked at her not as an instructor, but as a living witness to an unbreakable truth. Maya found her peace not in military reintegration, but in the simple task of restoring hope in young people. She had cleared the skies for herself, and now ensured the sky was safe for the next generation. She was the vigilant eye that flew in the shadows, thanks to Icarus and Anika, and the light in her students' eyes. The sun set over the Atlantic, painting the sky orange and gold. Maya, the ex-captain, survivor of the sea, Horizon Zero's guardian, was finally home. The story of Maya Reeves, the pilot thrown from the sky by men who traded honor for money, is not just a tale of survival. It is a real, profound life lesson for all of us. The greatest fall in life is not physical. It is the fall of integrity. General Corson and Director Vale had rank, power, and financial parachutes, but they fell into disgrace because their foundation was lies. True courage is turning betrayal into a foundation. Maya was thrown from the sky, handcuffed and defenseless. Instead of surrendering to victimhood, she used pain to free herself and fury to build her mission. No one can steal your purpose. The system tried to erase Maya, but all it did was force her to discover the purest engine for her flight: her brother's memory, respect for her comrades, and the tireless pursuit of truth. Her true redemption did not come from reintegration, but from rejecting a broken system and building something better. You don't need a parachute to make an impact. You only need a voice and the certainty that no matter how high you fall, truth is the only thing that always rises. The sea swallowed their lies, but Maya's strength, Captain Reeves' integrity, rose forever. If this story touched your soul, if you felt the adrenaline of her fall and the power of Maya's rise, show your support. Like this video, so the story of truth reaches more people. Share Captain Reeves' journey with everyone who needs a dose of courage. And please, comment below. Where are you listening or watching this story from? Where is Maya's truth resonating? For more necessary, impactful stories with real-life lessons like this, subscribe and hit the bell. Don't miss our next flight. Truth flies higher.